What's going on, Chargers fans? Chargers Now is presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Will Ortner. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about a news story that I actually view in a positive light, because I think there are a lot of Charger fans right now that are a bit fired up about this rankings. And even the ones who understand why ESPN came up with these rankings, they're still going to be a little bit disappointed on where the Chargers wide receivers were at. But I'm telling you, this is actually really good news for the team. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler released the second to last rankings for position groups. And of course, that one did end up featuring NFL wide receivers. Now, to me, I look at the Chargers and they have two guys that I would say should be on the fringes of potentially being discussed in this conversation, whether it be an honorable mention or whether being a also receive votes. Yes, I'm talking about Quentin Johnston, and I'm talking about Ladd McConkey. And if you clicked on this video, you know that Ladd McConkey gets mentioned in some way. So we're going to dive into if either one of those players were talked about, if they were, what was that conversation, and, of course, why I think this is a good thing for the Los Angeles Chargers. Before we do that, though, subscribe to the channel. Right now, we're trying to get to 5K subscribers, and we're trying to do it before training camp starts. That's right. Training camp is right around the corner. Less than 2 weeks from now, Chargers football will be back. 304 people just need to subscribe to this channel. Chargers fans, make sure that you share this video with your friends. Tell them to subscribe. We got so much great content. You don't want to miss out on it. So when it came to the wide receiver rankings, there was a clear top 10. And while I do think that Ladd McConkey could have been in the conversation for potentially being someone last year going into 2025 where he was a top 10 guy, of course, he was not on this list. And there were no Chargers wide receivers that were listed in the top 10. And to me, this 100% makes sense, right? Think about last year and think about how young a lot of these guys are. First of all, there are some older guys that made it on the list that probably shouldn't be top 10 wide receivers anymore, but because of past success, they ended up getting on there. You look at the Chargers, all of your wide receivers right now are young, and all of the young wide receivers are guys that I don't want to say haven't lived up to expectations, but have had at least 1 year where you can easily say that it was subpar. Was that their fault? Was it the offensive scheme's fault? I think that's really more up to the eye of the beholder in this situation. For me, I'm going to blame more of the offensive scheme than I am the young wide receivers. Now, honorable mentions is where I do think there is a conversation for some of the young Chargers wide receivers to be at. Now, honorable mentions for this list: Malik Neighbors, Mike Evans, Zay Flowers, Tyreek Hill, Drake London, Jamison Williams. You're going to notice that not a single one of those players is on this Chargers roster, although Tyreek Hill maybe potentially could be at some point, although I'd be a bit surprised. I see Keenan Allen more than I see Tyreek Hill. I was, of course, surprised by this list and where everyone was ranked at. I'm just going to be honest. I would have thought that Ladd McConkey or Quentin Johnston could have snuck into that spot, specifically Ladd McConkey, because I know that last year wasn't great for Ladd. I would also say this: last year might not have lived up to expectations, but I certainly think that it was still a very solid year from a wide receiver that was really carrying a lot of the load for this team. It felt like there was just an even dispersal of receiving yards between Keenan Allen, McConkey, and Quentin Johnston, which is kind of more of what Greg Roman wanted. Now, when you look at the also receiving votes, this is where you finally see a Chargers wide receiver pop up, and that, of course, is Ladd McConkey. And this does, again, make a lot of sense. He had a lot of success in the 24 year. 25, he took a slight step back, but to say that he was horrific would be an incorrect statement. To me, I actually view this as a good thing. One, for Ladd McConkey getting some recognition, but two, the fact that Quentin Johnston was left off of it. And we're going to spend the rest of this video explaining to everyone my point of view and why this is actually sneaky good for the Los Angeles Chargers. Before we do that, though, I need to let you know that today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app and is the best place to win cash while watching sports. Let's take a look at my lineup for the football action this season. I have the more on Justin Herbert pass yards, I believe the offense will be much improved in LA, and that should hopefully lead to more passing yards for Herbert. That's why I have the more on his passing yards. I have the more on Quentin Johnston receiving TDs. I believe that Johnston will have more opportunities to catch the football with a hopefully improved offense in Los Angeles. That's why I have the more on his receiving TDs. I also have the more on Rashid Shaheed receiving yards. A full offseason in Seattle should help Shaheed build better chemistry with Darnold. That's why I have the more on his receiving yards. New user offer. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to receive $50 in lineups. That's code HMA when you play your first $5 lineup to get an extra $50 in lineups with PrizePicks. Clickable link to download the app is in the comments and description. So I think there's some sneaky good news. Let's first start with Ladd McConkey. He is a very talented wide receiver, and I think we all know that. But last year obviously was not as good of a season as McConkey would have wanted, and I think a lot of us expected, right? Typically, you don't take a gigantic step back in that first to second year. Typically, it's your first year, you do one thing and you play one way, and then that second year you take a step forward and you get even better. Now, unfortunately for McConkey, he ended up actually having that sophomore slump instead of that rookie bump, I guess you could say, going from an 1,100-yard receiver down to 789. Now, I will say, and I do think this is important, I do think that Keenan Allen ended up actually taking away some of what Ladd McConkey does well. And that, of course, is being a receiver who runs those short intermediate routes incredibly well, using his superior route running ability as well as quickness to get open. Being a smaller receiver, that is something that McConkey is going to have to do at a very high rate to even get open. Now, what'll be interesting to me, I think, in the long run, is when Ladd McConkey sees that he's someone that is also receiving votes, is he going to be able to build upon that type of success and recognition from the NFL? I think that last year was a little bit more of a blip on the radar. Of course, he did miss some time during OTAs and mandatory minicamp. Now, that was because of a hamstring injury. I think that McConkey's going to go into training camp 100% healthy, and if he does, you're going to see him take that next step, or at least return to his previous form. Can Ladd McConkey return to his 2024 form? Let us know what you think down below in the comment section. Is that going to be a yes? Is that going to be a no? Very interested in hearing what you have to say. I think I've laid out a good reason on why he will return to that 2024 form, especially with Mike McDaniel being the new offensive coordinator, finding a way to get him the ball in space quickly. Next, let's talk about Quentin Johnston, because he wasn't mentioned at all, and I actually think that this is a great thing for the wide receiver. Because when you look at Quentin Johnston, it's already very evident that Roman's offense was not designed the way that McDaniel's offense is designed for Quentin Johnston. He had a lot of success at TCU with YAC, yards after catch. I think that he is going to be able to revert back to kind of that success under McDaniel, because McDaniel wants him to have the football in his hands rather quickly. I will say this, as his career has progressed, I've been more and more impressed with Quentin Johnston because every year he seems to do better. There's a higher average, more yards. The catches are a little bit down, but the catches per game go up every single year, right? Touchdowns per game go up every single year. Quentin Johnston is finally getting into a position where I think he can feel a complete trust with the organization. The Chargers, they already made it official. They got him that fifth-year extension, so he doesn't have to worry about whether the team is going to pick that up or not, whether they want him or not. He's in an offense that is more designed for him, getting the football out quickly to make sure that he's able to catch the football and make guys miss, which is what he's best at. And you're going to be in a new innovative offense that doesn't give everything away and is designed to help wide receivers. I think that Johnston is poised for one of the biggest years of his career. We know that there's that trust there. Mike McDaniel and Jim Harbaugh, they're only saying positive things about Johnston in his OTA workouts, his mandatory minicamp workouts. And I think you're also going to have a chip on his shoulder. Johnston is going to look at the rankings and say, how can I find a way to get myself on those? Johnston is not someone that you've ever had to worry about his competitive edge. He is someone that wants to go out and find success rather quickly. And I think that he's going to be able to do that in this new look Chargers offense. To me, when you look at Quentin Johnston, this is the best news possible for him because he knows he has the trust, and so he can have the confidence going into the year that he can succeed, while at the same time being upset that he's not named as one of the better receivers in the NFL. Which Chargers player has been most disrespected by ESPN? They've gone through every position group except for safety so far on where the rankings are for these players. Of course, maybe it'll all change after the safeties list, depending on where Derwin James ends up. But I am very interested in hearing from you. What player do you think has been most disrespected by ESPN? Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't miss any of the content that we have here on the channel. I told you, we got a bunch of fun things coming. We're going to do watch parties during the preseason games. We're going to have news, rumors, injury update, videos, all galore. This is the first year that you've had the Chargers get covered the Chat Sports way. And I'm telling you right now, in my opinion, the Chat Sports way is the best way. Content every single day you don't want to miss out on. Thank you guys so much for viewing the video. Can't wait to see you next time. Bolt up.